about 4 years ago, because I live in Bali and my kids don't really get to see a lot of snow, we decided to go skiing. And we went to France where we had a chance to ski. And I remember going to the hill, which is just white, it's just snow, and being with my son the very first time that he had ever skied, and just having a conversation about where do you want to ski on the slope. And of course he's there saying, well, I've seen on TV those guys who kind of come down and do the jumps and loops and so on, and that's what I want to do. Now, if I had taken him literally at that point, I would have taken him up to the black run. But to take a new beginner up from the black run would be a really dangerous thing to do. So I didn't. What I did instead was I took him to the beginner slope and said, well, we can work our way up to that. What's so interesting about this is that even though every hill on a ski resort may just look like white, it has a piste map, which is different colored runs. And it starts with the green, and then it works up to the blue, and it goes up to the red, and it goes all the way up to the black run. Already, by organizing all of that white mass into different levels, you've got this great opportunity for everyone to grow without losing their confidence. And what you notice is that what they're learning at one level, like for example, when you're starting at the green level, you're learning how to snowplow, which is how you're going to slow down. You need to unlearn as you go to the next levels. Because when you're in the black run, you're not snowplowing anymore. So in exactly the same way that there are these levels that move up, which allow you to build your confidence and know, if I can do this and this right, I can get to the next level. Within wealth, there's also those same levels. In fact, that was the inspiration on that trip for me creating the wealth spectrum, which are 9 levels which allow you to step from one to the next, where at every step you're learning certain skills, which frankly you need to unlearn to get to the next level up. Because as that slope gets steeper, you can actually create more flow, but at the same time, what you need to slow down and to speed up are quite different skills, but each one of them relies on the one before to earn your way up. Within wealth, there's a total of 9 different levels that fit into 3 different prisms. And for many of us, we want to go out there and change the world. We want to go out there and have financial freedom without realizing that these levels exist. Once you know the levels exist, they become like a ladder, which allows you, instead of trying to get to wealth by jumping on a trampoline and seeing the view once in a while, but always coming back down to the same place, it allows you to actually make a step which you never go back to, because each step allows you to kind of build the next step afterwards until you get over that wall and you get to what you want to get to. In terms of the 9 levels, they actually don't start with how do I start a business. They start with something called the Foundation Prism, which are the first 3 levels to do with your own personal flow. So this is not about how do you get to the flow of the market, it's how do you get your personal flow. And this is a bit like saying if you want to go on a ship to go across the oceans, the first thing you need to do is learn how to swim. Now, of course, you can say, why do I need to learn how to swim? Because surely if I get on a ship and I'm part of a crew, I wouldn't have to swim anyway. I'm going to be on a boat. No crew in the world will take you on board if you can't swim. So you need to earn the right first to even be on that crew. So those first 3 levels, the first level is something called infrared, which isn't even on the visible spectrum. And infrared is anyone who in their life, regardless of whether they have a business or a job, is going more and more in debt every month. So their cash flow is going negative. Some people, when they're negative, they're like, well, I've got to go and earn more money, so I'm going to go and start a business up. And then they get into even more debt. So there are very specific ways to get out of infrared level and to get to the next level, red. Red is survivor, and survivor is having just enough money to have nothing. So there are many people in the world, many, where even if they have a business, even if they have a job, they're at that point where there's nothing extra there. Now, if you're at that point, you're treading water. You haven't even learned how to swim yet. And so before you start jumping into new business ideas and new things you're doing, you need to move from that up to the level above that, which is orange, which is worker level. And worker level is someone who knows how to connect with the flow of the market in such a way that you're supporting others within that team to be able to generate wealth for them as well as for yourself. Think about a worker almost like someone who's got a job. But you don't have to have a job you don't like. You could be working with a team you're really inspired by, and it's still one big step up from running your own business being an infrared. So the myth of an entrepreneur, which is like, I've got to be in debt, I've got to be kind of suffering in order for me to even have my own business, really isn't true, and it's certainly not the way that someone like a Warren Buffett or a Bill Gates got started. So by knowing there's these 3 levels and then understanding what the steps are at each level, you can move out of each level, in my experience with everyone I've ever worked with, within 1 and 3 months. And for some people, they wouldn't believe that because they'd be thinking, I've been at this level for years. But it's because they've been focusing at other things that hasn't been about that one key area. I'll give you an example of this. For people to go from infrared to red level, infrared is all about discipline. The first step is something called measure your money. And measure your money is a bit like if you're going to go on a weight loss program, you're going to be focusing at measuring your dimensions. You're going to be focusing at measuring your intake, your exercise. A lot of people think if you're going to start your own business, start with something that's your passion. But the problem with starting with something with your passion, that's a bit like going on a diet, and when the dietitian comes and says, let's set up your plan, what are you passionate about? And you say chocolate cake, they're not going to put chocolate cake in the center of your diet because that's what got you in trouble in the first place. So for a lot of us, we're like, I'm doing what I'm passionate about, so I must be doing the right thing. But if you don't have that base, which is making sure the money's coming in first, you'll never have the base to attract other people to even want you in their team in the first place, because they can see you as a liability. Your energy becomes infrared, where all you can see is heat waves, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of fear. Even Superman has to be Clark Kent some of the time. Superman does not get paid to save the world. So he shows up in a suit, he puts in the hours he needs to put in to get the cash he needs to then earn his Superman time. And then he goes out and buys his Superman costume and off he goes. Every one of us, we have Superman time, we have Clark Kent time, and understanding how we're being of value to others in a way that's generating the cash that we want and need to support our family and support ourselves allows us then to take the next steps up. I've met with people where they have been struggling in their business for years, and the moment they go back and focus at their own personal flow, then suddenly, by getting that right first, their business takes off because they suddenly attract people in a very different way. So the first step, which is the Foundation Prism, the first 3 steps there are all about how do we manage our own personal flow so we become the center of our own solar system. Instead of us being the one orbiting around our business or orbiting around some challenge that we have no control over, our job, and then getting dizzy as a result of that, we become the sun, which is where we say, right, how am I going to make sure that everything that's flowing around me serves me to be the first person that's getting supported and growing. There's a reason that when you get on a plane, they say in the case of emergency and the oxygen mask coming down, use the mask on yourself first. And there are many people out there who are running businesses or trying new things where they're not following that rule. They're not making sure that they're creating flow in themselves. This is more than just paying yourself first. This is about actually making sure that what you want to achieve in your life in terms of your lifestyle, in terms of how you want to be valued for others, that everything you do in terms of the business, in terms of the partnerships, is supporting you to be stronger and better than the person you were yesterday. And as a result of that, even if a business fails, like a wave that you no longer can surf, you still have the surfboard, which is your own personal genius and talents of who you are. Now, if you can get the first Foundation Prism in place and it's working for you, then we get to the second prism, which is called the Enterprise Prism. The Enterprise Prism is not about your personal flow, which is how do I create my own plumbing system so that when I plug into the mains, the water's coming my way, the money's coming my way. The second prism is all about how the market's flowing and all that money that's flowing every day. This is where the game's now taking place. That instead of you being in the stands watching the game, you can be on the field. So the first step, which is the fourth one above the worker, is the player. This is the yellow level. So talking about if you're a yellow level and you've got a business, this is the difference of you working where you're just like using your time and someone else is leveraging that time to you actually knowing how to create a vehicle yourself that you can now ride, but you're still the one who has to do the pedaling, right? So a yellow level, that's the person who is a player, just like playing guitar. You don't really need to have a big team to do it, but people love hearing it. And as long as you're playing it, the music's there. But if you stop, then the music also stops. So this is yellow level where people get stuck because they end up with attraction coming their way, but they've got no more time left and they're still not making the money they want to make. So to move from yellow level up to green level, which is the performer, which is where it's not one person doing all things, it's all people doing one thing. Even like a lot of very smart people I know who are doing really well at yellow level have a real challenge moving up to the next level. And that's because at every level we end up with excuses that we hold on to. The excuses that a yellow level person gives to themselves of not being able to move up is either number one, I can't find people as good as me, so I'm the only one who can do this. Or number two, I think I can find people as good as me, but they're too expensive, so I can't afford them anyway. Or number three, look, I'm actually making enough money that I think I can find people better than me and who I can even afford, but I just don't have the time to even find them or to train them. These are the three biggest excuses that someone at yellow level gives themselves to not move up to green. The truth is, they have got so focused at their own independence and their ability to make things happen, they're missing that they need to unlearn that independence to move up to the next level. Remember when I met with Richard Branson in Necker Island, and it was my first conversation with him, and when I introduced myself, and he heard that I was from Bali, and he heard the things that I was doing with the Green School or with our Entrepreneur Resort, he started asking me questions. He started saying, oh, we're doing this with Virgin Unite. What would you do about this? What would you do about that? And I started answering those questions, giving him advice, and then thinking, why am I giving advice to a billionaire? How did this even happen within such a short period of time? And it's because he wasn't coming from a place which is like, let me tell you the solutions. A yellow level needs to have solutions. Like, here's the plan, here's what we're gonna do. Whereas someone who goes higher up no longer has to be that person. In fact, they let other people have the solutions in order for them to attract the right team to them, which is the thing that yellow level has a really tough time doing, because they're the ones actually making it all happen themselves. So by knowing that there's actually things you need to unlearn at one level to step to the next makes all the difference. I'll go a bit more specific than that as well. Yellow level, the 3 steps to get to it if you're a worker. First step is something called identify your identity, which is all about how you build a brand, a bit like a player on the football pitch. You're actually saying, here's the position I'm going to play. So everyone in the market knows that's who you are, that's how you can be of value, and your success comes from what you say no to. So a lot of people think success is what you say yes to. But when you're really creating attraction, it's what you say no to. So you're actually saying, this is the one thing I do really well. And then people then go, then we must use you for that, because you're the best at doing that. Identify your identity has some very specific steps that anyone can take, and you can actually then perfect that and move to the second step, which is called master your market. Master your market is about really understanding your customers so well that as a result of that, they want to do business with you because they know you know them better than anyone else does. And that means having a niche and a focus of where you're going. And then the third step, which is called monetize your moment, is how you make sure that at every moment you're doing the maximum thing that can actually deliver value and the maximum thing that can actually generate flow for you as well and for the people around you. Now, those 3 steps are all about how do you build financial independence for yourself with your own company. And it's all about what you're doing. To get up to green level, you need to unlearn all of that. Like, you still keep that in place, but it becomes second nature, a little bit like driving a car. It's not like you forget how to do those different things, but you no longer have to think about it because they're now just ingrained in who you are. And then when you get up to green level, the first step, which is counterintuitive for someone at yellow, is called establish your enterprise, which is not about what are you doing. It's what's the identity of your team? What's the company culture? How have you planned out the next 12 months in such a way that everyone's excited and motivated and giving you the solutions and plans of how they're doing it? The problem is, for most of us, we're the ones creating the plan at yellow level. But at green level, it's the team that's creating the plan. They might not even go as fast as you're going. They might not even be coming up with the same ideas as you. They might even have opposite ideas to you. But instead of actually just saying, no, that's wrong, this is the way we need to do it, you're giving them the opportunity to try new things out. You're giving the opportunity to take ownership. And from that, establish your enterprise, which is a bit like saying, what's the band name as opposed to my own personal star name? From that, establish your enterprise, the second step is refine your rhythm, which is you no longer being the guitar player, it's you being the drummer, where you're actually creating a rhythm. Why do so many people at yellow not want to do that? Most of the time, it's because the one thing that they really wanted at yellow level was freedom. Like, I want the freedom to not have to have a job. I want the freedom to be able to travel when I want to travel. It just didn't quite work out that way with the finances, and so now they're thinking, well, I want to grow bigger because I've got to a limit, and suddenly what? I've got to start showing up at the office again. I've got to actually be reliable to my team. Performers will never want to play with a player because the player's trying to play the game on their own. Performers will play with other performers. So the moment you actually say, yes, I am going to get other people to make the decisions for me, even if it means we're going in a slightly different direction from what I personally was looking for, but I'm giving people ownership for that, you start attracting amazing people that now want to work with you. Biggest thing is you're no longer asking the question, how do I make money? At green level, you're asking the question, how do I help you to make money? You're going to find that no matter how much anyone who's got success and wealth, how much they might have, they are always generating far more money for other people who are their partners, suppliers, than they are for themselves. They just happen to be keeping a percentage of it while everyone else is out there supported to grow the money as well. They have other people that worry about their business even more than they do now. And as a result of that, they're there supporting them as opposed to being the one having to show up to do all the support themselves. So that's the second level, and there's a third level in there as well called synchronize your steps. Point is, with each of these levels, once you actually know where you are, you can take the next step up and you can follow those steps specifically. And if you're just focusing at those steps, again, within 1 to 3 months, you can make enormous differences in your business, especially when you start unlearning the things that you were holding on to be able to get to the next level up. There's a woman who lives in the Czech Republic, and her name is Bea Benkova. And when I started working with Bea, she was maxed out at yellow level, which really means that she was there working on her own business. She was mentoring women. Her passion was women leadership. And she already was doing some coaching and so on, but she was chasing the business like everyone else was chasing the business. So when we started working together, she was saying, I'm exhausted. I want to find a different way to do things. I've learned about online strategies where maybe I should have some kind of online product that I should be creating, but I'm struggling to be able to do all of the websites and all this information that just doesn't come naturally to me. She had done her genius test, which we have, where she found out that she is a Blaze genius, which is someone who's great with people. People who tend to be very extrovert and great with people aren't always that great with systems. So it wasn't a surprise that she actually was struggling with all these other things that she was doing. At the same time, she also found out that by being at yellow level, which is that she had a strong brand already, but that she really wanted to build up to green level, she didn't have an enterprise. She didn't have something that she could shine a light on. So what happened was I said to her, well, where would you really want to be? If you could be anywhere 5 years, 10 years from now, what kind of legacy would you want to leave that you'd be building? She goes, you know what? It wouldn't even be about my mentoring. It would be about this movement of women entrepreneurship that's happening around the world. She said, what I'd love is some kind of education portal or a way that people could actually be part of an institute. So between us, we created an entirely new business, which was called the Global Institute for Extraordinary Women. And she created this as an institute which would run certification programs to empower women from Eastern Europe and from Europe and now also around the world to be able to actually take whatever they were doing, even if they were looking after the kids at home, get the empowerment, get the connection, and get the best learning they could get to be able to ensure that they could be the best women leader they could be. By her creating that, first of all, she already had now something to shine a light on where it was no longer about her trying to market herself. The second thing was when we said, well, how much money are you looking to make this year? And she was saying, well, I'd love to make $100,000. That was a lot more than what she was making at the time. She goes, well, that would be great. And I said, well, how many of these products would you need to sell to make that happen? And she was like, that's a lot of products. I said, you're someone who already knows people that people have great trust in. Do you think you could get a group of people together, women who already are leading in their field, tell them what your vision is, say that you want to create a little mastermind group where they can all come together and actually be part of that kind of leadership group, and where because they're going to get mentoring, because they're going to get brainstorming, they're each going to be putting in money to make this work. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like 12 people at $8,000 each, something like that. She went and made those phone calls and forgot about the whole online side for a moment. And within less than a month, she ended up making her entire year's income because she had a different strategy now which suited her genius. Now with that in place, she's done her Clark Kent time. She's now created a base which allows her to then actually do what she really wants to do, which is to grow the institute. So then after having that in place and having these people who had come on board to support her and be part of the beginning of this, she then went out to the media with the story, and in Eastern Europe she got picked up in the Czech Republic and Slovakia. She ended up being on primetime TV. She ended up being in online TV debates next to the Prime Minister. And all of this happened within 6 months of her deciding to change her strategy and focus at a team. More importantly, instead of her saying, how do I make this happen? She said, how do other people make this happen and how can I support them to make it happen? Instead of saying, how do I make the money? She was saying, how could I help other people to make money here, to be my partners, to be my suppliers, in such a way that I can actually have those success stories and also have them supporting my business as well. And the Global Institute for Extraordinary Women has now grown around the world. In fact, Bea was at our resort in Bali recently with a women's retreat for an entire month with people from all over the world who'd come in for that, who are part of this new organization. So that's a story of somebody who was stuck at one level, trying to figure it out for themselves, who by just understanding that there's a natural way for you to follow your genius, and there's natural steps for you to take to get the next level, allowed herself to free herself up, change gears, and end up being in a far more rewarding place for herself and for her family.